Hi there. The data in example 1 represent the difference between the actual high and the predicted or the forecasted high 1 day in advance for 1 month. That would be September. So let's organize these data and make a box and whisker plot out of them so that we can see how they are distributed. So the first thing we need to calculate is the middle or the median. There are 30 days in September. So there are 15 days in the top row. There are 15 days in the bottom row. They have been put in order by least to greatest. So there is no middle number in 30. So the median has to be halfway between the 15th observation, which is here, that would be 0, and the 16th observation, which is this 0. So literally the median is halfway between these two, and the average of 0 and 0 is just 0. So there is our median. So, of course, the minimum value we can see is -6. And the maximum value we can see right here is 8. So in order to make a box and whisker plot, we also want to take the lower 50% of the data. So literally this top row here. I want to find the median of this top row. So understand there are 15 observations here, so there will actually be a middle number. So let's find it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Here are 7 observations. Here's the 8th observation, which puts 7 below it, and that puts 7 above it. Literally, what you have found is the median of the lower 50% of the data. This is the median of the lower 50% of the data. This is called the first quartile. And we usually abbreviate it as Q sub 1. That value is -2, so I will write that in here. So we can also find the median of the upper 50% of the data. So again, here are the highest 15 values. So the middle one will be the 7th one, rather the 8th one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 here is the 8th one. So this is the median of the upper 50% of the data. This is called the third quartile, or Q sub 3. That's a 1. So now we have 5 values. We have the minimum of -6, Q1 is -2, the median is 0, Q3 is 1, and the max is 8. These 5 values are called the 5-number summary. And we can use the 5-number summary in order to plot what's called a box and whisker plot. So the first thing we're going to do is plot the median. Well, actually, the first thing we're going to do is decide where 0 is going to be. So 0 is the median. We'll put it in the middle here. And then we'll count up by 1 unit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. 9 and 10, and we'll go backwards. -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, -6, -7, -8. There we go. So the median is at 0. So I'm going to put a vertical bar there at the median, 0. I'm also going to put a vertical bar at Q1. That's at -2. I'm also going to put a vertical bar at Q3, that's at +1. And then I'm going to connect them with horizontal bars, which makes a box. This box, hence the term box and whisker plot, So this box represents the span of the middle 50% of the data. So here's Q1 to the median. That's a quarter of the data right there. Here's the median to Q3. That's another quarter of the data. So this represents the span of the middle 50% of the data. Now, the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to draw the next part in pencil. You'll see why in a little bit. So the maximum is up here at 8. So I'm going to put a little dot up here at 8, and then I'm going to draw a line segment from Q3 up to that dot. That's called a whisker. Same thing, I'm going to put a dot at -6, and I will draw a whisker from that dot back up to Q1. Here is the box and whisker plot, which of course we should label. These are forecast errors 1 day in advance. Forecast errors 1 day in advance. So here is the 5-number summary, but in graphical form. So here is the minimum. Here is Q1. Here is the median. Here is Q3. And then the maximum is over here at 8. So something important to calculate from the 5-number summary, or you can also calculate it by looking at the box and whisker plot, is what's called the IQR. IQR stands for interquartile range. INTER QUARTILE, the interquartile range. So by interquartile, we literally mean between the quartiles. So I mean this span between Q3 and Q1, we calculated as Q3 minus Q1. So in this case, Q3 is at +1, Q1 is at -2, and if you subtract 1 minus -2, you get an interquartile range of 3. So look at what the interquartile range accomplishes. It tells me what the range is, or what the span is, of the middle 50% of the data. Notice that this is the 50% of the data around the median. So the median is at 0, a forecast error of 0. Actually, no forecast error. So the IQR, in some sense, describes the variability around the median by considering Q3 and Q1. So much like beforehand, we had a measure of center that was the mean, and we used the standard deviation to describe the variability around that mean. So here in a 5-number summary, they're not quite the same thing, but what I want you to see is the median is a measure of center, just like the mean is. The interquartile range is a measure of spread, just like the standard deviation is. So when we calculate means, we use the standard deviation to describe the spread around the mean. When we calculate medians, or have box and whisker plots, we tend to use the interquartile range to describe the spread. That would be the spread of the middle 50% of the data. And what's smack dab in the middle 50% of the data? The median. So this is the basic way that you calculate a box and whisker plot, although if you notice up here I called this a modified box and whisker plot. That's because the one thing that we want to do is check for outliers. In the next video I'm going to show you how to check for outliers. It will work the same in all of our questions. That's why I drew this in pencil, because we're going to go back and modify these whiskers in the next video.